This is a kingdom that does not fit on one map. It begins on a strip of Danish coastline, where a lighthouse is quietly losing a 100-year war with the sand. It runs through a town older than Denmark itself, past a castle Shakespeare imagined without ever visiting, into a capital so content that researchers have measured it as the happiest city on Earth. And then, just when the story seems finished, it keeps going. 900 kilometers northwest, into 18 volcanic islands that answer to Copenhagen but feel like nowhere else on the planet. And beyond that, to an island so large it is not measured in kilometers but in comparisons to entire continents. This is the Kingdom of Denmark, not the postcard version, but the whole of it. 5.5 million people on the mainland, fewer than 56,000 on the Faroe Islands. Barely 57,000 across an island bigger than Denmark, Norway, Sweden, and Finland combined. 3 places, 1 crown, 11 waypoints from a moving lighthouse to a moving glacier. Rubjerg Knude is a lighthouse that lost its fight with the sea a century ago and has been losing gracefully ever since. Built in 1900 on solid cliff-top ground, it was meant to guide ships past one of the most dangerous stretches of coastline in Denmark. Within decades, migrating sand dunes, some 30 meters tall, began marching toward it from the west, pushed by relentless North Sea winds. By 1968, the light was surrounded, then swallowed. The lighthouse was decommissioned. The sand kept moving. In September 2019, Danish authorities did something almost nobody expected. They moved the entire building. Steel rails were laid beneath the lighthouse. Hydraulic jacks lifted it centimeter by centimeter, and over 10 extraordinary hours, the whole structure traveled 70 meters inland. Watched live by thousands, online and in person. It remains one of the strangest engineering feats in Danish history. Saving a building not by holding the sea back, but by running from it. The reprieve is temporary. Coastal erosion here removes roughly 1.5 meters of cliff every year. And engineers already know the lighthouse will eventually fall into the sea regardless, perhaps within decades, perhaps sooner. Visiting Rubjerg Knude is visiting something on borrowed time. Stand on the dune at sunset, watching the light and the sand and the endless grey water. And the message is unmistakable. Nature negotiates, but nature always wins. From the vanishing edge of Jutland's North Sea coast, the road turns south, through flat farmland, dune, and fjord, to a town so old it remembers Vikings not as legend, but as neighbors. Ribe has been a town for 1,300 years. Founded around 700 CE as a Viking market settlement on the banks of the Ribe River, it is the oldest town in Denmark and in all of Scandinavia. Long before Copenhagen existed, before Denmark was fully a country, merchants were trading amber, glass, and iron here. On streets that in large part still exist today, underneath the streets, people walk on now. Ribe Cathedral was consecrated in the 12th century and is the oldest cathedral in Denmark. Its stone hauled here from the Rhineland by ship 1,000 years ago. It has watched the town below it for 9 centuries, through Viking raids becoming Viking trade, through plague, through fire, through the slow modern world, arriving late and gently, as it tends to in a town this far from anywhere else. Every summer evening, a night watchman still walks Ribe streets, exactly as one has since the 1500s, lantern in hand, singing the hour, telling the town's history to whoever follows. It is not a reenactment for tourists so much as a tradition that simply never stopped. Overhead, white storks return each spring to nest on the chimney tops as they have for centuries. The bird that gives Ribe its unofficial symbol, and one more sign that here, very little has ever been asked to change. From Denmark's oldest town, the route turns north and east, past green farmland, to the country's second city, a place that decided deliberately to become one of the most creative cities in Northern Europe. Aarhus calls itself the world's smallest big city, and the joke contains real truth. "285,000 people live here. Denmark's second largest city by a wide margin, yet compact enough to walk end to end, with more than 30,000 university students keeping the streets young, loud, and creative. In 2017, Aarhus was named European capital of culture, and the city has spent the years since making sure the title stuck. At the ARoS Art Museum, Olafur Eliasson's Rainbow Panorama circles the entire roof in a ring of colored glass. A 360-degree walkway that filters the whole city below into every color of the spectrum at once. It has become the single most photographed spot in Denmark, and standing inside it, looking out at Aarhus through red, then orange, then violet glass, it is easy to understand why. Den Gamle By, the Old Town, is widely regarded as the best open-air folk museum in the world. "75 historic buildings moved here from across Denmark and reassembled into a living, working town, staffed by people in period dress, baking bread, running shops, and going about daily life exactly as it was lived a century and more ago." Nearby, Aarhus Cathedral stretches 93 meters, the longest cathedral in the country. And the cobbled Latin Quarter fills each evening with cafes, galleries, and 30,000 students figuring out who they are. Aarhus is proof that a capital of culture does not need to be a capital city. Jutland is behind us now. The road crosses the Great Belt onto the island of Zealand, where Denmark's story turns from Viking trade town to royal castle, and from open coastline to the strait where two kingdoms have stared at each other for 400 years. Kronborg Castle sits on the narrowest point of the Øresund, the strait separating Denmark from Sweden. And for 400 years, it made Denmark extraordinarily rich by doing something almost embarrassingly simple. Charging every ship that passed a toll. Built in 1574, Kronborg controlled entry to the entire Baltic Sea. No ship paid, no ship passed. The sound toll ran for 4 centuries, and at its peak, funded a significant share of the Danish crown's income. William Shakespeare never once set foot in Denmark, but he set his most famous tragedy inside this castle's walls anyway. Kronborg is Elsinore, the stage for Hamlet's to be or not to be, his father's ghost, his descent, his revenge. The Royal Shakespeare Company has performed the play here, on the actual battlements Shakespeare imagined without ever seeing them. Now a UNESCO World Heritage Site, Kronborg carries the strange distinction of being more famous for a story that never happened here than for the 400 years of history that did. Deep in the dungeons sits a stone statue of Åge the Dane, Holger Danske, a legendary Viking hero said to be sleeping here, waiting. According to legend, if Denmark is ever in true danger, he will wake and rise to defend it. From the battlements above him, Sweden is visible just 4 kilometers away across the water, the narrowest gap between the two nations anywhere on the strait. Kronborg has spent 4 centuries watching that gap. It is still watching. A short drive inland, away from the strait and its 4 centuries of tolls and legends, stands the castle that a builder king spent his entire reign constructing, the most magnificent palace in Denmark. Frederiksborg Castle is what happens when a king spends 20 years and a national treasury building the thing he wants most to be remembered for. King Christian IV built it between 1602 and 1620. A Renaissance Baroque palace spread across 3 small islands in a lake, connected by bridges, its red brick and copper spires rising directly out of the water. Inside the chapel, the original 1610 Comenius organ still stands. It remains, without much argument, the most magnificent castle in Denmark. One of the oldest playable organs in the world, extraordinarily preserved for over 4 centuries. Behind the palace, the Baroque garden is considered the finest of its kind in Scandinavia. Terraced hedges, fountains, and geometric precision laid out to be admired from the palace windows above, exactly as Christian IV intended. Christian IV was not just Denmark's greatest builder king, he seems to have treated architecture as a form of national biography. Beyond Frederiksborg, he built Rosenborg Castle, the round tower in Copenhagen. The naval housing district of Nyhavn, and founded the neighborhood of Christianshavn. Frederiksborg today houses the National History Museum, its walls covered floor to ceiling in portraits tracing Denmark's story through the very dynasties that built these rooms. A Renaissance king, functioning as his own architect, leaving behind not just a legacy, but a floor plan of one. "35 minutes south, The road arrives at the capital itself, the city that, more than any other on Earth, has made an art form out of being content. Copenhagen is the capital of the country most consistently ranked the happiest on Earth. A title Denmark has held more years than not since researchers began measuring such things in 1973. Nyhavn is where most visitors begin. A 17th-century canal, lined with candy-colored townhouses and wooden sailing ships. Where Hans Christian Andersen once lived at 2 different addresses, numbers 20 and 67, writing some of his fairy tales within sight of the water. The Little Mermaid has sat on her harbour rock since 1913. Barely 1.25 meters tall, the most photographed and, by most visitor accounts, the most quietly disappointing statue in Denmark. People arrive expecting a landmark and find a small bronze figure gazing out to sea. Tivoli Gardens, by contrast, rarely disappoints. Opened in 1843, it is the second oldest amusement park still operating in the world. And its atmosphere of lit pathways, gardens, and old-world rides charmed a young Walt Disney enough that he went home and built his own version of it. At Amalienborg Palace, 4 identical Rococo mansions face each other across an octagonal square that has been the Danish royal family's home since 1794. And every day, at noon, the Royal Life Guard marches through the city from their barracks near Rosenborg Castle to change watch here, bearskin hats and all. In a ceremony that has run largely unchanged for over 2 centuries. Copenhagen has more bicycles than people, with well over half its residents cycling to work daily, rain or shine. And in 2003, a restaurant called Noma quietly invented an entire culinary movement, new Nordic cuisine. Going on to be named the world's best restaurant 5 separate times. Underneath all of it lies Hygge, the Danish art of deliberate coziness, a word the rest of the world has spent the last decade trying, and mostly failing, to properly translate. Denmark's mainland story ends here, in its happiest city, but the Kingdom of Denmark does not end at Copenhagen's harbour. 900 kilometers northwest, in the open North Atlantic, 18 volcanic islands rise out of the sea, self-governing, fiercely distinct, and utterly unlike anything on the map so far. The Faroe Islands sit almost exactly halfway between Scotland and Iceland. An archipelago of 18 volcanic islands that belong to the Kingdom of Denmark, yet feel like nowhere else in it. Norse settlers arrived here around 800 CE, and the islands have been governed from Copenhagen with steadily increasing self-rule. Ever since the union of Denmark and Norway dissolved in 1814. Today, the Faroe Islands are self-governing in almost everything but foreign policy and defense. Their own parliament, their own flag, their own language, closer to Icelandic than to Danish. Fewer than 56,000 people live across the entire archipelago, nearly half of them in the capital, Tórshavn. One of the smallest and oldest capital cities in the world. Its historic government district of Tinganes still standing on the same headland where Viking assemblies met 1,000 years ago. "99% of Faroe's territory is ocean. The land that remains is almost entirely cliff, fjord, and grazing slope. No point on any island is more than 5 kilometers from the sea. And the weather changes so fast that locals joke you can experience all 4 seasons before lunch. The Faroes' economy still runs, overwhelmingly, on fish, around 90% of exports. But in the last decade, something has shifted. Young Faroes who once left for Denmark and never returned are now coming home, drawn by the very remoteness that used to drive them away. Tourism is growing fast here, and it is easy to understand why the moment you see the islands for the first time. Impossibly green, impossibly steep, and quite genuinely unlike anywhere else on the map. On the westernmost island of Vágar, past the airport, a single-lane tunnel cuts through a mountain toward one of the most photographed views in the whole North Atlantic. Mulafossur is, by wide consensus, the single most photographed waterfall in the Faroe Islands. A stream that gathers on the plateau above the tiny village of Gásadalur and then simply falls. 30 meters straight off the edge of a sea cliff into the crashing North Atlantic below. There is no lake, no pool, no gentle landing. The water leaves the land and becomes ocean in one uninterrupted drop. Gjásadalur itself is home to barely a dozen full-time residents, and until 2004, it was one of the most isolated villages in the Faroe Islands. Reachable only on foot, over a mountain pass more than 400 meters high, along what locals still call the Postman's Trail. A single-lane tunnel finally connected the village to the rest of Vágar in 2006. Before that, mail, supplies, and everything else arrived on someone's back. On windy days, which in the Faroe Islands is most days, the wind is strong enough to catch the falling water mid-drop and blow it back up the cliff face before it ever reaches the sea. A waterfall running in reverse for seconds at a time. Between May and August, puffins nest on the surrounding cliffs, adding orange beaks and comic waddling to a landscape that otherwise looks designed purely for drama. The route crosses back east, over bridges and through more mountain tunnels, to the island of Eysturoy, where the most improbably located village in the entire archipelago waits at the end of a single, spectacular gorge. Gjogv takes its name directly from the Faroes word for gorge, and the gorge is the whole reason the village exists. A 200-meter sea-filled ravine cuts straight into the coastline here, forming one of the best natural harbors anywhere in the Faroe Islands. For centuries, fishermen used it exactly as nature built it. Hauling boats up a stone ramp at the gorge's inland end, safe from the Atlantic swell, battering the cliffs just meters away. First recorded in 1584, Gjogv has always been small. Its population peaked at fewer than 300 in 1945 and has fallen since to well under 50. What remains is a village so picturesque it looks staged. Turf-roofed timber houses, a 1929 church that was the first in the Faroe Islands to hold services in Faroes rather than Danish, and, remarkably, the only operating railway in the entire archipelago. A narrow winch-powered incline line still used to haul goods up from the harbour. A short hike north, leads to Ambadalur Valley and the sea stack Bugvin at 188 meters, the tallest freestanding sea stack in the Faroe Islands and a nesting ground for thousands of seabirds. Danish Crown Princess Mary visited Gjogv in 2005 and was serenaded on a bench overlooking the gorge that villagers built and named after her. It remains there today, Mary's Bench, facing the same view that has defined this village for over 4 centuries. From Gjogv's Gorge, the road continues north to Bordoy Island and the Faroe Islands' second-largest settlement, a working town built quite literally on fish. Klaksvik is the second-largest town in the Faroe Islands, though calling it a city stretches the word. Barely a tenth of the entire nation's population lives here, clustered on the island of Bordoy between 2 narrow inlets, beneath the pyramid-shaped peak of Kunoyanaki, rising sharply behind the harbor. What Klaksvik lacks in size, it makes up for in stubbornness and self-sufficiency. Christianskirken, built in 1963, was the first church built anywhere in modern Scandinavia in traditional Norse hall style. Its open timber roof designed exactly like a Viking longhouse, an old wooden rowing boat still hanging from the ceiling in memory of sailors lost at sea. Nearby, Foroya Bjor has brewed beer here since 1888, the ram on its label a fixture of Faroe's shelves for over a century. And since arrival closed in 2007, the only producer of beer and soft drinks left anywhere in the Faroe Islands. Klaksvik sits beside the best natural harbor in the country, and the numbers reflect it. Roughly 10% of the Faroes' population lives here. Yet the town accounts for nearly a third of the nation's entire fish exports. A subsea tunnel finally connected Klaksvik to the rest of the islands in 2006, ending centuries of relative isolation. Hike to the top of Klakur Mountain above town, and the whole story is visible at once. Working harbor, fishing fleet, mountains on every side. And a community that has always made its living from a sea most people would find far too wild to trust. Everything so far, Jutland, Zealand, the Faroe Islands, is measured in tens or hundreds of kilometers. What comes next is measured in millions of square kilometers. West of the Faroe Islands lies the largest island on Earth, and it too flies the Danish flag. Greenland is part of the Kingdom of Denmark. Self-governing since 1979 and holding autonomy over most domestic affairs since 2009. And by land area, it is the largest island on the planet, at over 2 million square kilometers, more than 50 times the size of Denmark itself. % of that land lies under an ice sheet up to 3 kilometers thick, a single frozen mass old enough to hold a climate record stretching back over 100,000 years. At the Ilulissat Icefjord, a UNESCO World Heritage Site on Greenland's west coast, the Kujalik Glacier carves icebergs the size of city blocks directly into the sea. It is one of the fastest-moving glaciers on the planet, sliding toward the ocean at up to 40 meters a day. Standing at the edge of the fjord, watching a piece of ice the size of a building groan, crack, and fall into black water is as close as most people will ever come to watching geology happen in real time. Nuuk, the capital, is a small, brightly painted city of around 20,000 people. Smaller than a single neighborhood in Copenhagen, yet the political and cultural heart of an island bigger than most countries. Beyond it, the rest of Greenland belongs to dog sleds, the midnight sun of summer, and the northern lights of winter. And to animals found almost nowhere else on Earth: polar bears, narwhals, musk oxen, Arctic foxes. Denmark's kingdom, it turns out, does not end with Hygge and bicycles. It extends all the way to the edge of the Arctic ice. We began on a stretch of North Sea coastline, watching a lighthouse quite literally run from the sea. And we end on an island so large it is measured not in kilometers, but in comparisons to entire countries. In between, a town older than Denmark itself, storks still nesting on its chimneys. A city that reinvented an amusement park into something Walt Disney went home and copied. A castle Shakespeare set a tragedy inside without ever visiting it. A king who built 4 palaces just to prove he could. A guard that has marched the same route at noon for over 2 centuries. "18 volcanic islands where the weather can change before lunch is over." gorge village with the only railway in an entire nation, and an ice sheet holding 100,000 years of the planet's memory. Denmark is often summarized in a single word, happiness, and the summary is not wrong, exactly. Millions of bicycles, the world's second oldest amusement park, and a national concept of coziness the rest of the world still can't quite translate, all point the same direction. But the full kingdom of Denmark is larger and stranger than the postcard. A nation that governs both the gentlest capital in Europe and one of the wildest ice sheets on the planet. Always within the same red and white flag. Visit the mainland for the fairy tales, the castles, and the world's happiest streets. Then go further to the Faroe Islands, where villages balance on the edge of gorges, and to Greenland, where glaciers move fast enough to watch. The lighthouse at Rubjerg Knude will not stand forever. The ice at Ilulissat is carving as you read this. Denmark, in every direction it governs, is a kingdom quietly, constantly in motion. Go and see it before it moves again.